The pain has been exponential with having to deal with the red tape.
Abortions are now banned across Arizona except to save the life of the mother. And the latest court ruling leaves a lot of gray areas for pregnant women and providers to navigate.
The risk of criminal prosecution for a hospital would be a death sentence.
Well, there are a small handful of procedures which aren't technically considered abortion, even so they trigger the same legal intervention for providers.
Yeah, we're talking a bit about things like a DNC after a miscarriage or fetal complications where a doctor says the baby will not be viable outside the womb. Extremely personal, private medical decisions to induce and expedite the inevitable heartbreak of losing a child are no longer up to just doctors and parents. It's become a legal landmine for families and providers.
These are some of the earlier ultrasounds that we have of our little guy.
We met up with Isabel when she was 36 weeks along, carrying a little boy and an unthinkable weight.
His body is about 2 months behind where he should be, and his head is probably a month ahead of where he should be.
Genetic testing after abnormalities in the early ultrasound confirmed her son had a condition called trisomy 18. At least 95% of fetuses are miscarried or stillborn.
Instead of picking out onesies, we picked out an urn.
It was important to Isabel to carry him as long as she could.
I could not try for him. He was my son no matter what, and I'm his mom. This is an ultrasound of his head.
As the weeks wore on, the fluid around his brain made it less likely they'd have a live birth. All she wanted was to hold him before he passed. She says her doctor consulted with a panel of physicians and even got approval from the ethics team at St. Joe's before scheduling her induction. And you and your husband had packed your bags.
We did.
Go down to the hospital, and you said you guys were preparing to deliver and say goodbye that night.
Right.
So you're in this mindset, and then you get a phone call.
And I got a phone call that says, don't come. They proceeded to tell us that the legal team, told us that we couldn't deliver and that we would have to wait an additional 2 weeks from then.
She says St. Joe's told her people could go to jail or lose their license if any procedure even looks like a termination.
It was not ever the intent to end his life.
St. Joe's declined an on-camera interview, sending us a statement saying in part, "We extend our deepest sympathies to any family faced with a devastating diagnosis related to pregnancy. While we cannot discuss any patient's specific situation, we provide care within the bounds of the law."
And when the law is uncertain, lawyers frequently recommend no action.
Valley attorney Mark Kukanovich says no hospital wants to be a test case.
Because anyone who's assisting in these abortions can be prosecuted under these laws.
Even the legal teams. Isabel even tried calling the county attorney for guidance.
The idea that you would be forcing one of those people to reach out to their local prosecutor to say, does my situation fall under a case that you would prosecute, is really untenable.
And not just for families like Isabel's.
Anytime there's a miscarriage, there's a potential criminal investigation.
He says Arizona's new abortion law criminalizing medical choices only means more attorneys overriding doctors' professional advice and directives, not to mention the mother's mental health and well-being.
He's alive. I've always wanted him alive. I would love if he would recover miraculously from this. But these are end-of-life decisions we've had to make for our child.
And not being able to honor that on their terms only added to the weight of her grief. St. Joe's let Isabel induce at 37 weeks once they got into the 10th month. Baby Liam died 3 days later.
Chalking it up to poor timing is just not acceptable.
You said it's such a obviously personal issue. Thank you to her for telling that just heart-wrenching story that family went through. Did they talk about going to a different hospital or provider either here or out of state?
They did. They considered going out of town, but not knowing if their son would live for hours or days. They didn't want to be away from their family here. They have a 4-year-old daughter at home. So we reached out to other hospital groups, the Attorney General and County Attorney, none giving more concrete clarity on what's to come.
That's what everybody's looking for. The candidates for governor, everybody, the politicians are looking for clarity as well. It's one reason why the governor is considering calling a special session, bringing lawmakers back to the Capitol to weigh in.
Yeah, hoping to get some answers, of course.